And I was truly heartbroken for Dak Prescott watching him go through that, crying, his ankle dangling. That was a rough one, man. That was I think the entire. I don't care if you despise the Cowboys, you have to like Dak. He's one of the good guys. The entire sports world felt that. That was awful.
Yeah, you can feel for Dak because Dak was in that position. And I remember having this conversation, before he was forced to play on his franchise tag because they couldn't work out an agreement with the Cowboys for a long-term extension. I remember distinctly thinking, oh, this is better for him. He's going to make $31.8 million immediately, or maybe even $32 million immediately this season, which is a far cry from the $3 or $4 million he had made in his first 4 years. Mm-hmm. He's going to make a ton of money. It's not going to secure him, but it's going to make him wealthy, in the very near term. And in the long term, because quarterbacks aren't at risk for injury because of how well they are protected, to have a really long-term, successful contract and career with the Dallas Cowboys. And now that's out of the window in a sense. It's probably still going to be okay because this surgery is very successful. It's a treatable injury. You just have to worry about infection because it was an open wound. The complication of dislocated ankle makes it a little bit more, troublesome on the rehab, but you suspect that he's going to recover and be okay. But knowing how much this season specifically meant to him to prove whoever you want to say, let's say Jerry Jones, prove Jerry Jones wrong that he's the guy, it's just not going to happen. And you feel for him because of that. Very rarely do you see quarterbacks who have bet on themselves have disastrous outcomes like this.
Yeah, and it was just it was gut-wrenching because he's playing so well this season. Dallas's defense is one thing. Dallas's offense, led by Dak. I know the run game's been a little bit on hiatus early this year for the most part with Zeke, but, CeeDee Lamb making plays, Michael Gallup making plays, obviously Amari Cooper making plays. I mean, it's just – yeah, I will say that Andy Dalton can play. Andy Dalton,
how great was that offseason signing?
It's why you need it. You need a good backup that's not just like an aging guy who's collecting dust or, good for the quarterback room. You need somebody, and you saw how quick, that's when you knew it was based. So, Andy Dalton just fired into action. It wasn't like it was, whatever he was securing under his shirt with his pads, it was do that on the field. And Andy Dalton, by the way, you watched Joe Burrow yesterday, not to really weave the Ravens and the Bengals into this, but I think it applies to Dalton a little bit. So Joe Burrow gets sacked 7 times yesterday, and he gets hit 15 more times. That's pretty much what Andy Dalton was dealing with the last couple of years with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you lose the ability to make plays out of the pocket. He's not as nimble, not as dangerous with his wheels. We understand that. But you give Andy Dalton a creative game plan, a little time to make the right decision, and some weapons, which he certainly has. I mean, they're still going to win this division.
Yeah, no.
They're going to win the division.
I mean, as long as they start to turn things around defensively, which they still haven't quite figured out. The Giants didn't score a touchdown in 2 weeks, BT, and it was like immediately they're down the field and they scored, and they ended up scoring 31 points on the day.
And they had 2 touchdowns off the board.
That's exactly right.
2 touchdowns.
One was
special team.
One was a special team,
Yep.
so I don't put that on the defense
I
per se. It is an awareness thing. Most of those guys are defensive players. It's an awareness thing. But you gotta believe at some point Mike Nolan, who is a defensive coordinator, is just going to let these guys do what they do best. Go get after the quarterback, like rush them. Stop trying to be too smart with these 2-gap schemes that they're playing. Let these guys hunt the way that they're used to and were drafted to do. Eventually, I think you're right though. I think the Cowboys on paper have such a talented roster. It's hard to see why they're struggling so much other than the new coaching staff who didn't have any offseason to put things together. But that being said, you treat these first couple of games, as this is our learning process. Now it sucks because they've only won 2 games here, but they're not out of it by any stretch, right? They're actually sitting on top of the division right now, so they still have a great chance to accomplish everything that they thought they were going to accomplish at the beginning of the season. It's just going to fortunately happen without Dak Prescott.
Yeah, what's amazing to me, and obviously Tiki lived this here, whether it's in practice and you always turn the drill around, whatever it is, the old saying. And on game day, get the cart, scoop them off and let's keep going. just as a normal guy sitting there whose body would not have been able to withstand these collisions at all, let alone 21. Even in my physical prime, I just wasn't built that way. It's amazing how you watch this, right? And, there's 60 guys milling around. Guys are crying. Guys are praying. Guys are soul searching. And then as soon as they blow the whistle, bang, net snap, like they didn't even see what happened to Dak. It's amazing.
That's how you're conditioned, BT. It's like, do you like greens? Do you like broccoli? Yes, I do. You know why? Because my mother conditioned me when I was a young child to eat my greens. Same thing with football. You get hurt, it's emotional. It sucks. You turn right around. You got to go right back to doing whatever you were doing. It is a little bit insane, and you got to kind of be a little bit insane just to play this sport, anyways. But it's a cliche for a reason. It's a next man up business. You're only as good as that guy who's your backup. Well, which is what you were alluding to with Andy Dalton. I mean, the story, like the fact that they got Andy Dalton, who could have probably tried his wares somewhere else. Maybe Chicago, like Jacksonville,
Patriots,
anywhere. He could have. Yeah. The reason he
Carolina, if they didn't sign Teddy.
Yep. The reason he chose Dallas was because that was close to where his family was. And look, I got to figure it out for a year. I know I'm not going to play it all. In fact, what he was doing is his pads weren't buckled.
That's what I was saying.
He was buckling his pads. He's like, dude, I didn't think I was going to play. You got to all of a sudden snap those things in and let's go. Yet it's now his job to lead this team, and he did it pretty well.
He did
9 of 11. He didn't make any mistakes, and yes, he was scrambled a little bit because that offensive line is not nearly as good as it was 2 years ago. It's compromised, to be perfectly honest with you, especially with Lael Collins and
Tyron Smith.
Tyron Smith, they're out for the season, and so the run game's not supporting them like they used to. But if I would have picked a perfect scenario for the Cowboys losing Dak Prescott, it's to have an Andy Dalton type player on your squad who has experience. He's gotten to the postseasons. Now, they haven't done anything in the postseasons when he was Cincy, but he's gotten there, and he's a vet, and he's experienced, and he's got the right attitude, I think, for the role that he's stepping into.
Do you believe this is more about the Raiders win, and we should illuminate that first, or do you believe this is more about, this is kind of a surprising or whatever kind of loss for the Chiefs, and we need to attack that first? Tell me.
I think, interestingly, BT, you have to look at the Las Vegas Raiders and their victory, because I forget. Like, hold on, I got to pull it up their schedule, because they've had a tough schedule.
Yes,
already, and it's not like they take on the Kansas City Chiefs and it's, we're shocked because this is a great team that we're playing. But they had Josh Allen, who they lost to by a touchdown last week. They had the Patriots, who they lost to, and that's Cam Newton being Cam Newton. Cam Newton played in that game, actually, not like last week where they were forced to play on Monday night and Brian Hoyer and Stidham. They had the Saints before that, so they had Drew Brees, who they played in week 2. Now, they ended up winning that game, and the Panthers, but
the Panthers have proven to be pretty good.
Exactly, and they barely won that game, so it was a tight game. So they've played in like really close games. Very first one against the Panthers, they had to pull out, so there was some resiliency that they developed in order to win that game against the Panthers. At the time, it felt like, dude, this Raiders team they're underperforming. The Panthers are actually pretty good, as we've come to find out. They beat the Saints, who and they limited Drew Brees in that game.
Yep, that was the night they opened the new stadium.
That's
in Vegas.
Right. The Pats got the best of them. I mean, that is what it is. They got outcoached probably by Bill Belichick. But they played with the Bills all the way up until the end, and now they beat the Kansas City Chiefs pretty convincingly on offense. And this is a Chiefs defense, BT, which I was talking about last week and could carry back for over a year, that had been getting after the quarterback, from Chris Jones and, Frank Clark and Matthew in the secondary. Like, they were a good defense, and it had been part of the carrying of this Chiefs team when they had some rough patches offensively. But I got to give credit here to John Gruden, and maybe more importantly to Derrek Carr, who we minimize his importance because of how good everybody else has, all these other position players have been around him. But those 2 big passes he threw to Henry Ruggs, he knew it was man coverage. He's like, I got a faster guy than you. I'm going to stand right here. You're going to drill me, as he did and got drilled, and let this thing go. Henry Ruggs had 2 catches for 150 20 yards or something and 2 touchdowns, right? That's on the quarterback, standing in, knowing what's coming. And so Derrek Carr deserves credit, as does John Gruden, for knowing that the Kansas City Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, were just going to blitz him. They're going to blitz him and blitz him and blitz him and hope to get home. He stood in there and took some shots and made some big, huge plays, which you have to do in order to beat the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm not sure what else you need to know or to see and to classify this Raiders offense as an all-around dangerous offense that it's got to be a top 10. I don't even have the stats in front. I don't need them. Just with my eyes, it's a top 10 offense. You've got a burner. By the way, Ruggs didn't play 2 games.
Yep.
He missed 2 games.
Yep.
And he's averaging 29.5 yards a catch. Obviously bolstered by yesterday, clearly. But
it's 50 yards a catch.
Exactly. But he's going to be a big pop, big gash, big play guy. So you got that. You got the possession guy in Renfro. You got the tight end. I know, to Kelsey. But for my money, just catching the football, I'll take Waller, just me, over anybody. Don't need to get sidetracked there. Most people disagree with that.
Kittle.
But that's how much I like Darren Waller.
George Kittle.
I know. And Kittle, too. I hear you. I love Waller.
Those are my 2 top guys.
I got you. But I also loved Waller last year, so I've been kind of riding this train. Maybe I'm a little emotionally invested in Waller because I kind of jumped on him before I think the rest of America knew that he was really good. I just liked his story, and I saw him play early. I'm like, this dude is a player, man. This guy's good. So you got a slot guy in Renfro. You got a burner in Ruggs. You've got a great tight end in Waller. You've got a good quarterback. You've got a terrific offensive line that you've devoted a lot of resources, both draft equity and free agent money. Their offensive line's good. You've got a terrific running back in Josh Jacobs. So you've got all those pieces. I picked the Raiders to be a playoff team, all right, and to win the wild card with the third one. I had the wild card teams. I've got the Ravens because I've got the Steelers winning the North.
Yep.
The Ravens, the Browns, and the Raiders are my 3 AFC playoff teams. Now, to weave this into what we watched yesterday. Time of possession, Raiders plus 10 minutes, 500 total yards. The balance was there. You talk about the passing. They also ran it 35 times for 150 yards. I mean, the big issue with Carr, back to him for a second, the big issue with Derrek Carr over the years has been a reluctance to let it fly. And you know what? When they come into the building today, I would just have that Ruggs play on loop. Derek, this is what we need, man.
Yeah.
Just throw it. He'll get it.
Yeah, just go. Let him go. Let your guys who you have talent with go get it. Now, Nelson Aguilar also has.
And Aguilar. Forgot about Nelson Aguilar.
So, like, my perception of Nelson Aguilar is skewed because of what we saw in Philadelphia, where it was just like drop pass after drop pass, wide open. You miss him. Ever since he left Philly, he's actually been balling a little bit. And that again, it was blitz. I think it was cover 1 in the touchdown to Nelson Aguilar. Derrek Carr, same thing. He had to stand in and make a throw. And I think we're seeing a toughness in him that comes directly from John Gruden, because John Gruden demands that out of his quarterbacks. Obviously, there's got to be a smarts, right? There's got to be a comprehension and an understanding, and you need to be able to talk with me on this whiteboard describing what's going to happen in every situation in order for me to trust you. But the bigger thing for John Gruden, and I know this just because Rondé played for him, and I've had conversations with John Gruden, you better have a big set, man. You better be like just stand in there and be tough, because otherwise he won't mess with you. And I think Derrek Carr has developed that over the last couple of seasons, and now it's starting to show itself. And so this view of Derrek Carr is evolving. It's changing. Yep. We thought he was limited. It was like, all right, Derek, you've hit your peak, man. You got paid. Good for you, man. But John Gruden might want somebody else. I don't think that's the case anymore.
I agree with you. Now, listen, the Raiders' defense is going to be periodically a real issue this year.
No doubt.
It's impossible to sit here and say, well, can they maybe make a run? No, the Chiefs are going to win this division.
Yeah.
But, you look at the Chiefs now, and you gotta, they just look different. They feel a little different. Yeah. They look a little different.
Offensively, you mean?
I think, really in everything. I just,
But isn't it hard, though? Think of the complacency. It just happens. It's just natural, right? You win a championship and you think, We haven't lost. What was their streak? 13 games? I forget what it was. The streak was.
What, when they kept coming back, you mean?
No. Just their win streak. They hadn't lost
something like that. Yeah. You almost forget how to lose. You think you're
at least 8 or maybe 9, if
impenetrable.
not 13. It just felt like they no matter what happens, we're going to win.
Yeah.
Right. Even if we get down 24, like they were in the divisional round against the Houston Texans. Or was that the AFC Championship game?
They were losing to the Texans and the Titans.
Yeah. So that was the Texans in the divisional round.
Yep.
Even if we're down by 24, we're going to find a way to win. We're just better than everybody else. Now it takes getting beat in order to smack you back into focus until this game. But yeah, I mean, they get used to. All right, we're down. All right, I'm going to improvise. All right, you go do this. Draw this up on the back of a napkin, and Tyreek Hill, you'll be free, and I'm going to drop it in there, and we got this. Like that just doesn't work. You got to be fundamentally sound, and I thought they were evolving to that, and I think they still are. Sometimes it's okay to lose because it snaps you back into like the reality of what's important to winning. And I think Andy Reid, that's what he's going to be preaching all week with this Kansas City Chiefs team.
Listen, every once in a while you need a little kick in the face to once again reinforce that there's vulnerable. I mean, I don't care how good you are, you're vulnerable. If you don't play well. There's been some flashes this year. Week 2 was the Charger game. They needed overtime, and really the Chargers should have won that game.
Yeah, they're right.
It was 6-3 against the Pats at the half a couple of weeks ago.
That was without Cam Newton.
Without Cam, but I'm talking about from an offensive point of view. They only scored 6 points in the first half. So, then yesterday they get pushed around 500 yards, and again, gashed deep, gashed mediate, gashed on the run a little bit, or at least pushed around on the run. I've certainly, listen, it's week 5, and I've got so much respect for Mahomes and so much respect for that organization. There's no way I'm going to make some ridiculous proclamation that the Chiefs aren't going to win. That's moronic.
No, I agree. You're
moronic.
Right. They're winning the division. We know that.
But they look a little different.
They do.
That's undeniable. They look different.
Yeah. Or
they don't look like they're ascending.
Yeah,
they don't look like they're getting better.
Or is it more this, BT? Or is it teams are just catching up? Like we discount this and we forget it all the time. Eventually, defensive coordinators aren't stupid. You know what I mean? They're not going to keep trying the same stuff and get beat the same ways by the same team. So maybe teams are just catching up a little bit, right? They're figuring out, if we do this specific scheme, whatever it may be in a certain circumstance. We saw it with the New England Patriots last weekend, or at least last Monday night. The Raiders probably copied some of that in a sense because it worked, right? It held them back for a little bit, at least in the second half of this Raiders game, because they were getting run through early, the Raiders defense. But, eventually teams start to catch up. And if you don't keep evolving, then you start looking average, like the Kansas City Chiefs offense has looked the last couple of weeks.
But again, I'm more worried about their defense.
Yes,
that's what worries me.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all because. Okay. For the last, go 13 games, BT, it's been their defense at moments when they've needed stops. Their defense has been there to make those stops and to make those big plays, whether it's Matthew being in the right spot so Nelson Aguilar doesn't, get a 56-yard touchdown, or, a cornerback making a big play on a deep ball. Those things haven't happened to this Kansas City Chiefs defense. Or on a deep pass like that, Chris Jones gets home and sacks the quarterback. It's like they're a step late. And I don't know what that's from. Maybe it's fatigue. Maybe it's I don't know. They look like they're a step late. They're there.
Yep.
They're just a step late. And so I think it's correctable. And I hope it is because you want to see teams, continue to sell and push towards greatness. But maybe teams are just catching up. I think that might be what it is.
Let me end it on the Raiders because they won the game. So let's finish up rather than maybe looking at what's up. What ails Kansas City? Let's end it on something that I believe is a statement that you will latch onto, and most smart football people will. There's going to be issues with the Raiders. A couple times this year they'll lose the 37-35 game,
right.
Or maybe they lose 40-32 like they won yesterday. Maybe they lose 40-32. The script flips a bit, but There should never be a prolonged, provided everybody's healthy, there should not be a prolonged stretch, and by prolonged, I mean more than one outlier game. You shouldn't happen twice in a row. I don't care who you're playing. The Raiders should not struggle to score points.
No.
Period.
They got too many weapons.
They have everything. They have a deep threat, a tight end, a running back, an offensive line, a move the sticks, Renfro, third down guy. They've got and they've got innovative coaching. This offense should be rolling the rest of the way. And if there's a step back and it's more than a week, then you got to look at Carr. And then maybe we'll get back into a Derrek Carr conversation. But he's finally lost the shackles that have prevented him from throwing the ball down the field. And when he does that, they're going to beat some teams, boy. I don't care who you are. They're going to win.
Good things happen when you have speed. That used to be a cliche in my era. Speed kills, man. In the NFL, if you have it, exploit it as often as possible.
Yeah, and especially for the Raiders, that's all Al Davis used to draft.
That's right.
You know,
I think it started with him.
It did. Doesn't matter. Can he catch the ball? I don't know. He runs. Draft him. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.